I want to be a mother, and I want to be motherly. It would be somebody that's good with kids, I guess. I grew up, it was
Cassie reportedly took the settlement money and quietly disappeared from America. New court documents now reveal she's living overseas and says, duh, she has no plans to ever move back to the U.S. But after years of rumors, lawsuits, and disturbing allegations surrounding Diddy, fans are starting to wonder if this move was less about luxury and more about escape. What shocked people the most wasn't just the settlement money, it was the fact that Cassie had already quietly left the country without anyone realizing it. According to newly surfaced court documents filed in May 2026, Cassie confirmed that she now lives outside the United States and has no intention of moving back. That single statement instantly sent social media into meltdown. Dang. For years, fans watched the drama between Cassie and Diddy unfold in headlines, lawsuits, and leaked footage. But while everyone was focused on the courtroom chaos, it seems Cassie was already planning an entirely new life far away from Hollywood. Reports claim she's no longer a resident of California, and the filing even stated that traveling to New York for legal matters would be easier than returning to the West Coast. And what really made people pause was how silent the move had been. No major announcement, no emotional goodbye post, nothing. One day, she was at the center of one of the biggest celebrity scandals in years. And the next, she was reportedly gone. And almost immediately, fans started asking the same question. What made her want to leave America for good? And just when people thought the story couldn't get any bigger, the focus shifted straight to the money, and the numbers alone were enough to shake Hollywood. Reports circulating across multiple outlets suggest Cassie's major financial settlements tied to long-running legal battles involving Sean Diddy Combs. According to these claims, one portion of the payout was linked to a settlement reportedly worth around $20 million, while another separate agreement involving a hotel-related case added roughly another $10 million. Combined, the figure being discussed online climbs to nearly $30 million. But what made this even more explosive wasn't just the amount, it was what came with it. Once security footage allegedly showing a violent hallway incident resurfaced, public attention flipped instantly. The clip spread everywhere, and suddenly the entire conversation around the case changed tone overnight. What was once just legal back and forth turned into a full-scale cultural moment that Hollywood couldn't ignore. Connecting dots, wondering if the settlement was only about money or about finally closing a chapter that had followed Cassie for years. And as the details spread, one thing became clear. This wasn't just another celebrity payout. It was the kind of situation that changes reputations, headlines, and maybe even entire careers. But even after the money made headlines, people still couldn't understand one thing. Why leave everything behind after winning such a massive settlement? Just when the settlement headlines started to settle down, old and disturbing claims began resurfacing online, pulling the story right back into controversy. According to recent court filings and ongoing lawsuits, new allegations tied to Sean Diddy Combs have been brought forward by individuals connected to the case, including claims made by Clayton. These reports suggest he was involved in situations that he describes as highly disturbing, including being hired in connection with private encounters involving Cassie and Diddy. It's important to note that these are allegations made in legal documents and have not been independently proven in court. Howard's claims also describe emotional and psychological harm, adding another layer of seriousness to an already complicated legal situation. Some reports even suggest he has been one of several individuals cooperating with authorities in broader investigations, though confession is beamed as these details started circulating again. Social media quickly reignited old conversations, with fans revisiting every past headline, interview, and leaked detail. But instead of answers, it only created more questions about what really happened behind closed doors during those years.
Oh.
And then, just as the noise reached its peak, an old message allegedly connected to Cassie's personal life suddenly came back into focus. At first, it looked like just another forgotten detail from the past. But once it resurfaced, it completely changed how people were reading this entire situation. Banned online discussions started circulating around an alleged message reportedly sent to Cassie's husband, Alex Fine, back in 2023. The message, which has not been independently verified, was described as unusually emotional and direct, with the sender allegedly acknowledging seeing things during Cassie's past relationship that deeply troubled them. It also suggested that Cassie had endured a series of painful experiences but didn't leave at the time, even while things were allegedly escalating behind closed doors. And what made this detail so explosive wasn't just the content itself, it was the timing. Fans began connecting it back to everything Cassie had already said publicly in legal filings and testimony, and suddenly, the narrative around her past started feeling even heavier than before. Social media quickly picked up the story, with users debating what was real, what was exaggerated, and what was being misunderstood. Some saw it as confirmation of long-standing rumors, while others warned that nothing should be treated as fact without full legal clarity. But while the internet was focused on decoding old messages, Cassie herself was already miles away from all of it, building a completely different life far from the headlines. While online theories kept spiraling, Cassie's real life had already moved in a very different direction, far away from the noise. Banned, reports, and court-related statements suggest she is now living outside the United States and has no intention of returning. Instead of public appearances and constant media attention, she has reportedly chosen a much more private life focused on her family with husband Alex Fine and their children. Away from Hollywood, the constant pressure, headlines, and legal battles, she has seemingly stepped into a completely different reality. And what makes this shift even more striking is the timeline. Around the same period, she was involved in intense court proceedings tied to Diddy's federal case. She was also navigating pregnancy and later welcomed her third child in 2025. That contrast alone, courtroom testimony on one side and new motherhood on the other, added another emotional layer to her story. Fans online have speculated about why she chose to stay so far from the US. Some believe it's about privacy, others think it's about distance from a painful chapter she wants fully behind her. But none of that has been clearly confirmed by Cassie herself. And as her new life quietly continues overseas, one question still lingers for millions watching this story unfold. Was leaving America simply a fresh start or something much deeper? The reason this story hit Hollywood so hard goes beyond just celebrity drama. It's about power, silence, and what happens when both finally collide in public. For years, Cassie was seen as someone who stayed mostly out of the spotlight, rarely speaking in detail about her personal life or past relationships. That's why when court filings, testimony reports, and resurfaced allegations started stacking up, the shift felt massive. It wasn't just another celebrity headline anymore, it became a wider conversation about what can happen behind closed doors in the entertainment industry. At the same time, public perception has changed a lot in recent years. Audiences are no longer just consuming celebrity news for entertainment, they're actively questioning timelines, revisiting old interviews, and rethinking stories they once ignored. That shift made every new detail in this case land with even more weight. And because Cassie eventually stepped back from the spotlight entirely, the silence around her only made people more curious. No constant interviews, no public explanations, just court documents and scattered reports filling in the gaps. That combination silence, fame, and resurfacing allegations is exactly what turned this into more than a scandal. It became a story people couldn't stop analyzing. But even then, one final detail kept pulling viewers deeper into the mystery. Even after all the settlements, court filings, and online debates, there's one detail that continues to stick in people's minds: Cassie's complete disappearance from the US. Without any public bond, unlike most high-profile figures who announce major life changes, there was no formal statement. Huff. No press rollout, and no carefully managed goodbye. One moment she was tied to one of the most talked about legal cases in entertainment, and the next, reports suggest she was simply living overseas, far from the spotlight that once followed her everywhere. That sudden silence is what keeps fueling speculation online. Some believe it's a deliberate choice to protect her privacy after years of intense scrutiny. Others think it reflects just how exhausting the entire situation became, especially with so many overlapping legal and personal pressures happening at once. But none of these ideas have been confirmed, they remain theories, not circulating among viewers trying to make sense of the timeline. What makes it even more unusual is how rare it is in Hollywood for someone so well known to step away so completely without a visible return plan. It creates a gap where rumors naturally grow, and every small update gets magnified into something bigger than it might actually be. And that's why, even now, people are still asking the same lingering question: what really pushed Cassie to build a life so far away from everything she once knew? When you look at the full picture, this story isn't just about settlements, lawsuits, or headlines. It's about a life that moved from the center of fame into complete silence. Cassie's journey went from public relationships and music industry spotlight to courtrooms, allegations, and legal filings that pulled years of private history into public view. And then, almost without warning, reports suggest she stepped away from it all and rebuilt her life outside the United States, far from the world that once defined her. Whether people see it as a fresh start, a form of escape, or simply a personal choice for privacy, one thing is clear: the story left a major impact on how fans view celebrity power and the hidden cost of fame. No? And even now, with so many answers still unclear, the biggest question remains open. Was this the end of Cassie's story in the public eye? Or just the beginning of a chapter no one fully understands yet? Oh no.